Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, episode 67. Today's topic is communication and time. You know, for the longest time, I've worried about lovers in a dangerous time. Time after time, I have thought that if I could turn back time, or time warp, to somewhere around 25 or 6 to 4, it would feel like the first time, like time is on my side. But as time goes by, I realize more and more that time is running out, that life is life, and before we know it, it will be the end.
Welcome to Communication Diva. This is Jen Swanson. I'm your host, and you are listening to the podcast that interviews interesting people on their take on communication and what things they do to communicate better, and also explores tips and ideas and techniques on improving your communication skills. I think the root of much conflict in the world has to do with poor communication or breakdown in communication skills. And so my hope is to spread better communication skills around the world, and I need your help to do that. So thank you very much for listening and for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to this podcast. Today, I wanted to talk about time, as a matter of fact, time as communication. And I've been spending a lot of time out in the garden because this past weekend was really nice. Not sunny and hot or beach weather or anything, but it was not raining, which is in our part of the world, which is British Columbia, which is in the Pacific Northwest. It is often pouring rain, so it was beautiful to have a non-rainy weekend. It was also a long weekend because on Monday, we celebrated Victoria Day, which is the birth date of Queen Victoria, who is long since dead, but it gives us all a stat holiday to stay home from work and school and to do other things. So we took the young kids mini golfing in a really weird place, I might add. We took them mini golfing at a plant nursery. And of course, as very well designed by the plant nursery, ended up coming home with some beautiful clematis plants and some other plants to plant in our garden. So we've got some lilac bushes planted, we've got some clematis trees planted, and lots of geraniums and other things. And it's been a lot of fun being outside and getting our garden and our yard sorted out. There's still tons and tons of work to do. We moved here last summer, and it is there's so much that's been neglected and so much that needs doing that it's going to be a years-long project. But it's a good way to spend some time, I must say. And today it was back to the rain, and so I spent some time at the Communication Diva podcast. And if you come to the website, and if you come to the website and subscribe to the Diva Digest newsletter, you can click on the image that looks like a little envelope on the right-hand side of the page and subscribe, and you will get a newsletter from me. Not that often, I might say, maybe once a month or so, whenever I have something new to say. And you'll get some tips, you'll get some updates, and you'll get some things that are not found anywhere else on the site. So if you'd like to come and subscribe, this week, if you're listening to this May 21st to May 28th, 2013, there is a special bonus once you sign up and subscribe to the email list. You will get a coupon code to download my ebook absolutely free. But that's only good from May 21st until May 28th, 2013. And so if you want to join my email list, that will be part of your bonus. All right, so time as communication. And one of the questions that I have is, can we really manage it? Now, the fancy-schmancy name for time management and how we use it and the use of time is chronemics. And time actually is a way of communicating, and we can send the wrong message through our use of time to those around us. And it may be an intentional message or not, but we definitely can send the wrong message. So let's look at that idea first. And one of the most obvious things to talk about there would be punctuality. So I had a student nursing unit clerk who once was doing her clinical or her practicum at a hospital, and she was somewhere in one of the middle floors of the hospital. I can't remember how many floors or how many stories there were on this building. But the reason I'm telling you that she was somewhere on one of the middle floors is that I, as a supervisor, used to start at the top one day and go to the top floor and see the student on that floor, and then take the elevator or the stairs down to the next floor, etc., and carry on down to the bottom floor where I saw the last student of the day. And then the next day I would alternate. I would start at the bottom and work my way up. But I wasn't clever enough to mix it up even more and start in the middle. And what happened is, towards the end of her clinical, when I was getting some reports from her supervisor, the manager of the hospital unit said, she's a really good nursing unit clerk, but I would never hire her. And I was stunned, because every time I came to see her, she was doing a great job. Everything looked good. I said, why ever not? And she said, because she hasn't been on time for a shift the entire clinical experience. She has not been here on time. She's been 10, 15, 20 minutes late every single day. And I was stunned, because I had started at 7 o'clock up on the top floor, and the next day 7 o'clock on the bottom floor. And by the time I got to where this student was, of course she was there. So I had no idea. But I sat her down and I said, you've actually lost a job opportunity because you have not been punctual for your shift. And your lack of punctuality has communicated to the manager that you really don't care all that much. And she looked at me and she was sputtering. She says, yes, I do care. Yes, I do care. I said, well, unfortunately, the way you were using time did not communicate that. And your actions spoke louder than your words. And unfortunately, she didn't get hired at that hospital. So your time use can send the wrong message if you're not careful about how you're using it. It's one thing to be late once or once in a long while because of, a bus problem or traffic or whatever. But being punctual is particularly important here in North America, and likely in other parts of the world too. And not being on time or early for your job is a communication that, and whether the communication is correct or not, the perception is given that you really don't care enough to get there on time. So how we use our time can send the wrong message. Now, some people are chronically late. Some people are chronically early. The other extreme would be getting everywhere half an hour early. Now, some people just really like to do that so that they can be prepared and they can get ready and all the rest of it. But there is something to be said as well for being much too early to an appointment consistently, and for not taking your breaks at work, or for working through coffee breaks and lunch breaks and times when you're supposed to actually be off and taking the time for yourself, for your own body and your own needs. Now, there are lots of reasons why people do that. Some people like to get to work super early, get the coffee made, get everything all organized, check all their emails, and then start work. And that's great, unless you are in a situation where your work is a unionized position. And in that case, then you are working for free for that half an hour. And that can be frowned upon also, depending on what kind of work situation you're in. Not taking breaks can end up being really bad for your health, and also can become expected by the people that you are working with and for. So I would say be careful with that. If you have, once in a while, if something heavy is going on, you have to work through your break, that's one thing. But to consistently not take your lunch breaks or your coffee breaks, or to come super early and stay super late without compensation, can communicate that A, you're not organized enough to get your work done in your 8-hour shift or whatever time frame you're working in, um, or uh, or that the job is too much for you and it takes you much longer to do things. So even though those things may not be true, those can be some of the communications and some of the perceptions that can be made if you are not using time efficiently. So that's just one way that time can be used as a communication. Another way is that importance of time sometimes has to do with whose time we're talking about. So, an example that I give in my classroom is if you want to go speak to your boss, you have to make an appointment. But if your boss wants to speak to you, you drop everything and you speak to your boss right now. So, whose time in that scenario is more important, right? It's your boss's time that is, allegedly more important than your time in that power difference or authority different situation. Your boss is the authority, and so the authority's time is ostensibly more important. Same with doctor's offices. You wait in a waiting room for your doctor. You wait in the waiting room for a specialist or for a lawyer or for some people who are highly educated professionals um, who seem to have it set up so that their time is more important than whoever it is they're serving. Now, there's lots of arguments to be made against that, but that is the perception, right? So you wait for the person with more authority or with expertise to come and look after you in those situations. So that can be, again, a communication. Whose time is more precious? Whose time is more important in these scenarios? And it's just something to pay attention to and to be interested in when we're thinking about chronemics. What about time management? And my question is that fact or fiction? Can we actually manage time? It seems to be almost a cliche or a buzzword or something. Time management, time management. Um, and I don't know, can we manage time or does time manage us? That's a question I was pondering earlier this afternoon and asked Scott about, what is going on with that? Really? Do we really try to manage time? Because we both in our house happen to make lists. We are list people. We make lists left, right, and center. We've got lists everywhere we turn, lists in our car, lists everywhere. And did you get through your list is often a question at the end of the day. But in reality, there are always lists and always more lists. And we will never get through all of our lists. So being able to at least feel as though your time was well spent in a day, whether that be in productive activity or in restful contemplative activity, being able to feel at the end of the day that you made good use of your time, whatever you did with it, is a good thing. And sometimes that's really hard for us to figure out. There are all sorts of books and websites and topics on time management, and I think you can organize yourself to be more efficient, and you can cut some things out and make some changes in order to feel more productive. But I'm not sure if you can actually wrestle time into a managed itinerary, because you know what? Life happens. Stuff gets in the way. Somebody phones you, or some crazy thing happens, or there's just stuff goes on that we can't predict in a day, and sometimes it's important to stop and focus on whatever that thing happens to be at that given time. So it's hard to say. There are cultural differences regarding time use as well. And I know, again, in North America, the saying is time is money, and people seem to be really obsessed with time use here. And I know that that is not the same in different areas in the world. And sometimes when you have people from other places um, getting together, it can be frustrating when there are some people who are so intent on time and others that really, it's okay, whatever, we'll get there when we get there. And that can frustrate either way. We were in Lesotho, in the middle of South Africa, in the Kingdom of Lesotho a few years back, and we were trying to use a computer that was in the lobby of hotel, and it was not working. And the people at the desk said, "Oh, we'll call the computer repair people." And okay, when will they be here? Oh, maybe tomorrow. And that was the answer we got for about 3 days. But it was because things weren't pressing. It wasn't urgent. It might have been urgent to us, but it really wasn't that big of a deal to other people. Another thing that happened that was actually a little bit amusing. We were there for a wedding, or a celebration of a wedding, and the family were quite connected to the royalty in the country. And they had actually said that they weren't going to invite the royalty, the king and his wife and their children, to the celebration because of time. And it was because in that country and in that culture, nothing can begin if the king is invited until the king arrives. And the king is notoriously late, apparently, for things. And the family was very concerned because the bride and her family and many of her friends, and we were guests that came from Canada, North America, were very time conscious. And the family didn't want to upset the Canadians with sitting around for 4 hours waiting for the king to arrive. And I was really disappointed. I thought, oh, I would have waited that long. This was a very interesting experience, and I would have loved to have met or even just seen in person the royalty, but that didn't happen. So, but it was very interesting. They were very worried about offending us because they knew how intent we were about time. And so cultural differences, and some countries have a really interesting way of dealing with it. Halfway through the day, everything stops and people go have a siesta, go have a nap, go have lunch with each other, go home and visit their family, and then come back to work. And I think that's just highly civilized. And I think, wow, that's so much nicer than, slamming it through at your desk, eating your lunch and, answering email. So cultural differences can be challenging, can be confusing, can cause misunderstandings and conflict. And it would be really good to be aware of the possibility of cultural understandings of time as being different, especially if you're working with people from all different cultures or you're going to visit a different place. So tell me what you think about that topic, because maybe you're listening to this from somewhere that has a different view than North America does on time management, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that and what's important where you are. Perspective. It's all how you look at it. Working in the hospital really brought this home to me, especially when I worked on palliative care, which is end of life care. And it became clear to me that there were people in this world who have way too much time on their hands. So people who are bored and don't have much to entertain them, who don't have family and visitors, who don't have anything to do, and who just are delighted when you would come up and have a conversation with them about anything, because it would break up the boredom and the long days of waiting in the hospital. So there are people who have far too much time with nothing much to do with it. And then at the other end of the spectrum, there are people who have very little time left, people who are facing their mortality, people who are ill and have, so many months left to live. And they are rushing to get in as much quality time another buzzword, but as much quality time with their loved ones as they possibly can before they don't have any time left. So it's all about perspective. And I posted a picture on the website of a young mom and her little child picking dandelions or flowers and taking the time to enjoy and explore nature together. And there are those beautiful moments that sometimes we don't take because we don't have time, but the sad thing is we don't get them back again. I had a messy house when my kids were little because a lot of the time I wanted to just sit on the floor and play with them, play dress up or play tea party or play whatever they wanted to play at the time. And it wasn't such a big deal if my floor was super clean or my house was spotless or whatever. It was more about spending that time while your children are tiny because they're only tiny once and it goes so fast. I look at my 21-year-old and my 19-year-old and the 13 and 11-year-old and they're all so big now. And that childhood, that time of innocence and sweetness and playing patty cake and bedtime stories and all of that, it goes so fast. So time is partly perspective, and I think it's all how you look at it. And you might, if you have the glass is half empty kind of attitude, you might think a lot about wasting time, as opposed to glass is half full and enjoying some downtime. We have a lot of terminology around time, don't we? If you think about it, a lot of terminology around time. So here's how to protect your precious time and to stop giving it away or wasting it on unnecessary things. You have something like 144 minutes. No, that can't be right. 1,440 minutes in a day. And in a 24-hour period. And some of that you need to be sleeping, right? But what about the rest of it? What are some things that you can stop giving attention to that you could save that time and use it for things that will serve you better, things that will be better for you, things that are more life-giving to you? So, junk mail and telephone solicitation and wasting time on ads and there're just so many things that maybe you could stop with. Even to go so far as there are people who are we call friends or acquaintances who take up a lot of time and effort and energy and don't give back very much. So people who take, and don't often give back to you in any kind of meaningful way, and their hard work. Those friends that if you don't call them for 3 days, they call you and say, "Why haven't you called me for 3 days?" That kind of thing is exhausting, and I just don't have the time for that. If the friendships that I have don't give me joy, aren't fun when I get together with that person or talk to that person, don't contribute anything to my life, then I think, why am I continuing this friendship? Out of what kind of obligation? And sometimes I will just let that one drift away. And find other people to be friends with who are energizing and inspiring and interesting people. So there's that. Think about where are you spending your time? Are you volunteering for something that you hate doing? You probably have, well, I know you have many gifts and talents and capabilities, abilities. And if you're volunteering for something that you put your hand up and said, yes, I'll do it because nobody else wanted to, but you really hate it, then you might want to consider volunteering instead for something that you love doing. If you love to cook, maybe you would prefer to do some cooking as volunteer work, or if you love gardening, do some gardening, and or if you love animals, work with animals. But if you absolutely hate taking the minutes at a meeting or typing something up, and it's a volunteer experience and you don't have to be doing it, reconsider, because there isn't a lot of time in your precious 1,440 minutes a day to waste, right? So what are you doing? Are you spending a lot of time doing chores when there might be faster ways to do it, or somebody else you could pay to do it? Email. How many times are you checking your email in a day, and how much of it is junk? How much of it is something you are signed up for that you never read, or that is advertising or whatever? Maybe go through your email and double check and see what, those things that people send you that are, little stories or whatever, that if you're not interested in them, ask them not to send them anymore. Protect your precious time and do something that you want to do with it. I was looking at my deck the other day, and I was thinking about the novel that I started reading on our last trip on the airplane and never got farther than about 2 chapters. And I was thinking, it would be really nice to make a cup of tea and to go sit on the deck with this book and just read for an hour. But I often don't feel like I have an hour to fritter away reading novels when there's so much else that needs to be done. I work 2 jobs. I have this website. I'm in school. I have these kids. There's so much more to do, and now a garden to be playing with. but really, I don't think, if I think about it, time reading and resting and having a cup of tea is a waste. I don't think so. I think it's actually food for the soul, in some ways. As is gardening to me, is playing in the dirt and listening to the birds and watching plants grow. So, what is it that you want to be doing? How do you want to spend that precious time? And what can you do to cut down the time that is not good, is not life-giving? And the last thing I wanted to talk about is spending a little time on yourself. And that, the segue of reading a book is a good one, taking some time for you, taking some time to play, taking some time to find a friend and going, go for a walk, go for a movie, go play a game, go sit and have a hot drink and a visit or something. Have a beer, just something for you. Maybe it's, pampering yourself a little bit, or whatever, going to the gym, whatever it is that you would want to do for an hour for yourself. Spend a little of your precious time on you, because you know what? You are worth it. And if you get tired out, bogged down, run down, burnt out, you're not going to have much time to do anything else. You're going to be unwell. So there's my little lecture of the day, is to remember yourself and remember to do something for yourself, especially if you're a super busy person and are doing things for everybody else all of the time. Remember you, and remember to take a little bit of time out of each day or each week just for you, and do something that you want to do because you want to do it, not because someone else wants you to do it. So there you go. So that's my look at time. And my question is, how much time do you have? How much time do you have? If you have any ideas or strategies for time use, please come and share them. We could all use a little help, and you might have a really great idea that would be helpful to other people who listen or who come and read. So please come to communicationdiva.com. Right in the comments section, come to Facebook. You can follow us there. Wherever, come and connect. And again, if you'd like to sign up for the newsletter for the next short while, there's a time-limited offer. I can't believe I said that. To get my ebook for free for a download. So thank you very much for spending this time. I know that it's time taken out of your day and all the other things that you could be doing, and I really appreciate you being here and spending a little time with me. I'm Jen. I look forward to hearing from you. Take good care, and until next time, thanks for listening to Communication Diva Podcast.